All right, today is Tuesday, the 29th of August, 2023 at 4:30. We're in meeting room 2. Roll call.
Gavin Byers.
And Chris Nosella. Jim is on vacation. All right, so we have additions or deletions within 48 hours. I don't think we have any. We're gonna do a reappointment of officers today. Gavin, do you have anything to say about that? Because we are going to do it.
I don't, other than, no, I don't really have any additional comments to that yet.
Okay. I would like to appoint Gavin as vice chair at this time. Would you like to second that for me, Gavin?
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay. And would you like to say anything?
No,
Not you.
We need to vote on that, right?
Yes, we'll take a vote on, can we vote on them all together, or do we have to do them individually? I think,
you can make a motion to restructure the board as Chris Nosella chair,
Yeah.
Gavin Byers vice chair, Jim Leclerc clerk.
yeah,
and then vote on
we'll
those
do that
ones.
at the end. All right, do you want to appoint anyone, Gavin?
I'd like to appoint Chris Nosella as the chairman.
I will second that. And I will appoint Jim Leclerc to clerk.
I'll
Okay,
second.
okay, can we have a motion to accept the new designations for chairs and vice chair and clerk, please?
I'll make a motion for the new chairman, vice chair, and clerk.
Okay, I'll second that. Can we have a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So that is done. At this time, as chair, I'd like to make a motion that we recognize the Board of Health to appoint Chris as chair, vice chair, and Jim as clerk. I also make a motion that the Board of Health officially censor Jim Leclerc for his unacceptable behavior on June 9th, 2023 at the Board of Health meeting, and notice Jim Leclerc of this censor in writing, please,
I think it
Kyle.
was August 9th, just an FYI.
August 9th, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so we
I
got
second
that.
that.
Okay, and I'll put that up for a vote.
I'm in favor, aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're in favor on that. Open meeting law response with the town administrator. Why, that would be you.
Yes, it would be. As both members of the board, I think, know, who are present know, there were 2 separate open meeting law violations filed
Oh, that's the other one? Okay,
regarding the August 9th Board of Health meeting. Both open meeting law violations are substantially similar in the allegations that they made concerning open meeting law
yeah.
complaints. I think it makes sense to talk about the actual substantive violations separately.
Yeah.
And come to kind of some sort of resolution to each of them separately.
Sure.
So the first one was a concern that because the Board of Health meeting started at 9 o'clock, but the building didn't open at 9 o'clock. It was not possible for the public to get into the meeting by the time it opened. So
Makes sense, yeah.
I think that, as a practice, it makes sense for the Board of Health, if you're gonna have first thing in the morning meetings, just make them either 9 to 5, 9, 10. It doesn't need to be like
Yeah.
at 10 o'clock, but
Right.
just give enough time for the public to get through the open door.
That actually was an oversight on our part, and that will not happen.
Yeah, so I think we should just put in our response, because we have to do a formal response to both of these
Yeah. Are
individuals.
you writing the response?
I'll probably draft it,
Okay.
and then
I mean, because if I write it, you won't be able to read it.
yeah, I mean, I'll draft the response, but
Okay.
I think it needs to be voted on today
Yes.
to have it drafted with these responses.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
think the response to that should be, the Board of Health in the future will make sure that the earliest meetings that they have are at least 10 minutes after the door to town hall is
Yeah,
open.
okay, that sounds
And
good.
if you put that as the response, then you've responded to that kind of open meeting law.
Okay, that makes sense.
Um,
Gavin, we're gonna do these individually. Do we need to talk about these or just?
Well, I think having a conversation about this one right now is, if
Yeah.
either of you have any comments, that would be
Yeah,
great.
Gavin, are you okay with that response?
Yep, I'm good with that. Sounds good. Makes sense. We kind of know what's going on with that anyway, and we had been talking about that previous, so that makes sense.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
Okay, so this,
Am I looking at the back of this one? Is that what I'm looking at, or?
yeah, the description of the alleged violation is kind of, there's two separate descriptions. They're on the same form, so they look similar.
No, it's not that one. That's the demands.
Yeah, it's the description is the top one.
Okay, yeah, so we got
Number
that.
one, so the second one is the meeting location was posted as meeting room 2, but it wasn't a meeting room 2, and the
Yeah.
signage wasn't posted at the time the meeting was gavelled to order.
That happened because this table was full of telephones. We didn't know that.
Sure.
We had to move, and when we moved upstairs, we had someone go down and change that on the door.
Sure. And so I think the response,
yeah,
the response should just be,
yeah,
the Board of Health will make sure that anytime that, as the Board of Health regularly does, we'll make sure that anytime the meeting room has to be moved, that it gets posted prior to the gaveling in of the meeting. As long as there's a post down here before somebody says the meeting is open,
Yeah.
you've met the requirements.
yeah. Okay. Gavin, you good with that?
Sounds good to me.
Chaz, you have something?
If you could add on that first one, to notify Sabrina of the time that you're having your meeting, she can set the door to unlock at a particular time. So if you're having it at 9 o'clock in the morning, she'll set the door at 8:45 so that the door automatically unlocks.
Oh, okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll have it after 9, because it automatically unlocks at 9, so that way that'll take care of any problem
Okay.
with that in the future.
But that's just a thing to think. I don't think that needs to be in the open meeting law response, but I think it's a good thing to think about. If for some
Yeah.
reason there's an oversight
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
and you recognize that something's happening and the door is just gonna unlock, just let us know. We can tweak it.
Okay.
Either Sabrina or myself.
Okay, that's very good. Okay.
So
This one's kind of funny.
the third one is the music from the dollars fund prohibited the public from hearing and proceeding at the table.
Okay, here's the thing, and we'll figure out how to word this correctly. As far as I remember that when so-called complainer was saying that we either need to do, what do you call them? The meetings on the television or have this on Zoom or have that. Well, until the town supplies me with a laptop to do a Zoom meeting, I can't do that. And the state doesn't require it, so we're not going to do that.
Well,
Here's the other thing. We are on telephone if people want to call in. Now, the new phone system was too loud. That's what the music was all about. We turned the phone down as best it could. That is out of our hands.
it's interesting that it's not happening now.
Well, that's because there's
There's
someone
people on
online.
here.
But if
It's
people
only-
aren't online,
They
it's
have
only
the
music.
elevator
Yeah.
music and you can't turn
You
it down.
can't turn
I'm
it
sure
down.
that we can talk to the telephone people and figure out a way to
Well-
do that, but we couldn't mute it because then we wouldn't hear if
No,
someone
came on.
came on. So it was just a new system, new location, and
So my perspective is this, and I'll be completely honest with you. There's no reason that the Board of Health shouldn't be on Zoom. Because
Are you providing us with equipment to be on Zoom? Because
TCAM does it.
you give us all
They
computers?
don't give you, they run the Zoom.
Well, we meet down here.
But you'd meet in the Board of Selectmen chambers, and we're gonna set up this room for Zoom
What if-
too.
What if we need stuff out of the office? Planning board and those people meet in those chambers because their office is right there. Ours is down here. Our meetings will run 20 to 25 minutes longer. If Carla needs to go get a drawing or something, to come all the way down the stairs, go all the way back upstairs. We meet near our office for a reason.
But you could, this room will be eligible for Zoom as well.
Well, okay, right now it's not. So right now, we're not gonna do that.
Okay, so I mean, that's I don't think there's any reason to not do it.
I
You
just
know?
told you a reason not to do it.
But how often do you have to send someone down for something? It's not gonna be 20 minutes.
I mean, maybe they're gonna go down more than once. I'm just saying.
It's just, in an effort to be for openness and transparency, Zoom is the kind of medium, for two reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, 'cause it shows up on TV,
Yeah.
you know?
They'll show up on TV.
Those show up on YouTube, right?
I don't know, they're on the TV.
Yeah. But number two, it allows for greater public participation.
Yes. And that is one of the reasons why we can't get a quorum. Because we keep making things so much easier for people to sit home and not participate. That's why you didn't have any people at your spring meeting. People stay home and want to watch it on TV live. You're keeping them from participating. And you don't realize that, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
I agree that's great, everybody gets to see it. But if no one wants to come in, they can stay home and watch it. You don't get a quorum. Until the state goes, okay, you can have a quorum if you count people online, it's not working. It's just not working, guys. You know that. Tried twice in the spring to get a meeting and we couldn't get a quorum.
Oh, I know, I was there.
Yeah, so was I. And I've explained this to the Board of Selectmen before. And I understand we're trying to make everything easy for everyone, but life's hard. Sometimes you just gotta get off your ass and participate.
Well, I think putting up barriers to that is not.
It's not a barrier.
Well, I think.
It's not a barrier. This is the way this town has been run for 200 years. And everybody seemed to participate before. We went to Zoom, now everybody wants to stay home. I'm just telling you, this is reality.
Yeah, I understand what you're
It's reality.
saying, but we don't do things the same way we did that. We have telephones for people to call in. We didn't
Well,
have that
I don't
200
want
years
that
ago.
either. I want people to come here if they're concerned.
Sure.
If you really cared, you'd show up. You guys are here, you care. Am I wrong?
Chris, if I'm,
Go ahead, Gavin.
I'm actually in agreement. I think that we should be moving to a Zoom system. I think that with new technology, there comes a lot of growing pains. And the way these things work is you implement a new technology and there's growing pains and there's a span of time which it's painful. But in the long run, we're going to go to Zoom anyway, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. If we do it now, we get the growing pains over with earlier. The other thing is we're going to need a lot of transparency in the next minimum 6 months, but I'm looking at re-election times, and I'm thinking we're going to need transparency for 2 years based on what's happened in the past month since the 9th of August. I know it's not the most palatable thing for us as a board, and we've operated fine without it up until this point, but I think it would have actually prevented some problems here recently, and I think it prevents problems in the future. And I know what you're saying, and I understand that piece, but the reality is that the demographic of people that are going to come in are slowly going to dwindle down to nothing, and the demographic of people that look at everything on their phone and on a tablet and on a PC from home is going to start taking over the populace. It's headed that way anyway. It's just a matter of time before we do it. I think we should get used to it now. That's my opinion on that.
And it's a very good opinion. So, what do you want to do, Gavin, as far as answering this question then?
Well, in terms of the question, I think it's a moot point because it was a circumstantial situation where nobody's on phone, so we're going to get the elevator music, number one. number two, it's not our program or our process that put into play the music. So that's really out of our hands. And at that moment, we were doing everything that I can see we can do as a board. So I'm not really crazy about adding any future plans to answer this question. I think it's really a moot point, to be honest with you, in terms of answering this question in this particular case.
I tend to agree with you.
So for purposes of answering the question, we can explain the situation. Maybe we can get Carla an old-fashioned headset. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
So you can just
we
listen
know
to the
what
elevator
happens
music
now,
during
so
the
what we can
meetings.
do is
You're hilarious.
we can just have one of us call in and then just mute our own phone. That way it's not elevator music in the recording.
That's actually a really good idea.
It's a workaround, but that's the best workaround we can do until we can contact some technical company that can get rid of that elevator music, or we eventually get to the Zoom process.
So here's what I'll do. I'll put in the explanation as to why it happened.
Yeah.
Which is new phone system. There was nobody on the line, and so the phone system defaults into that hold music. And the board will work to make sure that in the future there'll be a workaround, either technologically with the phone company or via somebody calling in from who's physically at the meeting to make sure that there's not elevator music that drowns out.
I honestly think that was explained to somebody at that meeting, because I explained it, that
Sure.
I turned the phone down as far as it did. We just trying to work with the selectmen that want us to have public access, and at the time, that's what we had. Now, I didn't realize that we could have been on TV up there and not had the phone on. I don't know, I'm not
Yeah.
into that stuff, so
Yeah.
we just did what we always do. And that was the result. That was actually explained to someone that I tried to turn the phone down. I said, that's as low as it goes. And well, what about the music? I said, well, we work with the selectmen, wanted us to have, you know, communication with people so that they could participate remotely. And this is what we have at the time, because we usually meet in this room. That's what we did up there. So we did everything we were asked to do.
I'm sorry. Gavin, were you gonna say something?
No, I was agreeing with both you guys on that point, that exactly what you said as the workaround and what the problem was explained to the plaintiff here at the meeting on the 9th of August.
Okay, so if the board is comfortable with that
Yeah,
response,
yes.
you can put that as the response.
Yep, sounds good.
Two has been taken care of.
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, we're done with.
Meeting decorum in order of all boards, commissions, and authorities and committees. Unfortunately, we are an elected board and we govern ourselves. We think we usually do a pretty good job at it.
I'm unclear as to what that actually means, if you don't mind me asking, Chris.
No, please do.
So no, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the
Oh, you're not looking at
the actions. I'm looking at the actual the upper half.
Oh, okay, you haven't got down there.
Yeah, I haven't got down there yet. So 1 was the 9 o'clock, 2
Yeah.
was the not posted, 3 was the music, 4 was the agenda not being followed.
Yeah, well, that is true.
And so I was about to say, I don't think that there's any question.
I don't think anyone has a question about that.
There's a
To be
question
honest
that
with
the
you.
agenda wasn't followed, and I think, I think the answer from the board unfortunately needs to be,
Yeah,
the Board of Health acknowledges that the chair went,
went off the, let's see, didn't follow the agenda.
didn't follow the agenda and inappropriately didn't ask for a motion to take something out of order, didn't add anything during additions or deletions that he could have.
Yeah.
If he wanted to take a point of personal privilege or something and say something, I don't think,
Yeah,
that's not about the subject matter of what he said. That's about the open meeting law violation of taking
yes.
something off the agenda.
I have a hard time blaming the whole Board of Health for that. everybody that saw that knew. We had nothing to do with that. We didn't even know that was gonna happen. I mean, we were in dead shock.
Sure, no, but
Affecting,
for
Chair.
purposes of the open meeting law, it governs the board as a whole. And so the fact that in a board meeting, a member of the board does something like this, the Board of Health is the one that has to answer for it. And I think the answer is
Yeah.
this one member did something that the board was not, without the approval of the board, without asking the members of the board for a vote, without taking it, and, the board has taken the step to censure that member.
Yeah.
And remove them as chair. And I think that's the response that we put into the open meeting law
okay,
violation.
Gavin, you good with that?
I love that response, yep.
Yep, okay.
Um,
Are you writing notes, or are you just gonna remember all this stuff?
I had this prepared for the last meeting.
Okay.
And there's also a recording.
I've known what the answers to these events since I saw this.
Okay. Let's see, so we
The
did all
last
that.
one.
Misbehavior by the chair and going. Okay, I can tell you right now, if that isn't removed from this, that is defamation of character on me. And I will ask Adam to represent me in court to take that as a civil suit against the person who sent this in.
Well, that also doesn't have anything to do with the Board of Health.
No, it does. It says right here, Board of Health member. That puts me as a Board of Health member that did this. Now, I will
Well-
not stand for that.
Well, so did you see what it says though? It says if you look at that YouTube video when the meeting decorum policy, and I did look at it when at the Board of Selectmen meeting where the meeting decorum policy was adopted, it just said you made comments about the policy, which
I did.
which you
Absolutely.
did. So there's no that's an accurate statement that you did.
Okay, I just don't want her attacking me. And
What
actually,
whatever
or actually my administrator, because she was sitting there and she looked at her and went, "You knew this was gonna happen."
Yeah.
No, you know what? None of us knew. You could see that on the camera. That's a terrible thing. I want an apology from my administrator. If we're gonna be straight up.
Yeah, so with respect to this is
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
I'm just dealing with the open meeting law
Yeah.
violations. The answer to me about this is not, there's no open meeting law violation alleged in number 5.
okay, so we'll just ignore it.
I don't think that there's I think that the allegations in there are allegations. I don't believe that the allegations are of an open meeting law violation.
They're not.
There's allegations that you didn't like the decorum policy when it was passed and made statements about it.
Yeah, I did.
I think that's a
And
true-
I
that's a
think
true-
I made myself clear that we govern ourselves, we're an elected board. We will not allow anyone to come into our meeting and give us any crap, you know? We've never had a problem in the past. I always thought I did a good job as chair, you know? We never had any problems.
Hopefully
I
on
don't
August 9th,
understand.
it demonstrates that maybe that decorum policy is something we
Well,
probably need to have in
I
writing.
was not the chair.
But it needs to be something that applies to everybody in every board, and I think that's but for purposes of an open meeting law violation,
It's not an open meeting.
it's not an open meeting law violation.
So we ignore it.
Whether there's another issue, that's a separate question, but.
Yes. So
but
we
for
ignore
purposes of
this.
an open meeting law
It's
violation,
not an open meeting law violation, it's
I think the answer is, the
no comment.
I don't think we need to say something about that particular section as a part of the response.
Okay.
I'm just reading this other one to make sure there wasn't some
Oh, there's another one, right?
different. Change the notice, music, available song, and vote taken on the adjournment. So
I have a question, please.
Sure.
If you don't mind. Where I'm reading this, it says the Board of Health stated several times to us that she had nothing to do with this, which only begged more questions. Mr. Leclerc re-entered the room, knocked over a chair with my belongings on it, and continued his verbal attack on Veronica Kell. That's when he actually said the board members and Carla had nothing to do with this.
sure,
That's when he said that.
right.
So why is that not in here?
Well, the blunt answer is none of that has anything to do with the open meeting law.
I just find it very odd that you have a half of a sentence, that it just runs off and he re-entered the room, and tell what he said. I mean, if you're gonna be that specific, you should have noted that he stated right there and then that the board and myself had nothing to do with this. It was all on his own.
Right, but, and again, just to
Hey,
kind of.
if I may for a minute,
Sure, yeah.
can I respond? Carla,
My meeting.
we've talked about this. You're attempting to put rational thought into a situation where there was no rationale on either side. And we all know that this complaint is an attempt at doing some things that are unrational. So to try to put some rationale behind the thought process of what is listed as open meeting law complaints in there and what isn't listed is just a futile exercise right now.
Okay, thank you.
None of what happened was rational.
Okay, good
So,
point.
so I think there's a couple of issues. Number one, the adjournment. The initial adjournment, whatever Jim did,
Yes.
was obviously a violation,
No,
right? Like you
No.
can't just decide as the chair
No.
that you're gonna
no.
smack the table.
If he
adjourn.
feels that he can't control a meeting, he is allowed to close the meeting.
He's allowed, well, he's allowed to call, the appropriate way to do it is to have a call
I've seen it,
recess.
I've seen a million things on TV where school committees and people in the city go, and they all walk out.
Yeah.
No vote, nothing. It is perfectly legal.
Well, no, it's done, it's
Yeah.
not legal at all.
Well, it's done. It was done.
It is done.
Yeah.
And so the appropriate thing to do, and this is just kind of like for everybody to know, the appropriate thing to do is says, we're taking a recess, and the chair can just decide that. We're taking a recess until, and then the chair actually has the authority to call the cops and clear the room.
Yeah.
So you can call a recess, call the cops, get everybody out, then have a motion to adjourn and adjourn.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. I understand that people all the time
Yeah.
do things that are in violation of the open meeting law.
Okay.
My understanding, though, is that you actually came back and had a motion to adjourn and actually
did.
adjourned.
Yes.
So that would be my actual response, which would be, the board acknowledges that the initial
Yeah.
statement by the chair that the meeting was adjourned was not proper protocol. However,
Yeah.
minutes later,
Yeah.
the two remaining members of the board had an actual motion to adjourn that was voted on. And therefore, that's the response to any open meeting law question about the motion to adjourn, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Does that work for you, Gavin?
That makes perfect sense, and that's exactly what I was gonna suggest we put in there.
Okay.
And so, you know, the next field, what action do you want the public body to take in response to your complaint? This is what that's the middle of the two middle boxes on the complaints.
Oh, this one here or this stuff?
That right there, and then that one on the other.
This one and this one.
So, Ms. Boundy's
Okay.
request is basically, I defer to the administrators how to best to handle the actions. Okay, so that, there's not a specific request from Ms. Boundy for things to take. Ms. Kell actually made several requests of the board. So number 2 is already done, remove Jim as the chair in Centrum. I quite frankly, I think 3 is a no-brainer. Like, there's already a policy that says you have to be appropriate in a meeting.
Well, that kind of makes sense. That shouldn't even need to be there, but sometimes.
I think unfortunately, after, you know,
Yeah,
at least,
well.
if that was adopted by the Board of Health formally, then if this situation, you know, we hope that a situation like this never arises, but if it ever did again, you would get, there's an adopted policy that the board could actually say, hey, not only are you acting just inappropriately in general, you violated the policy that we adopted for meeting decorum. I think,
Didn't we just do that? Didn't we essentially just do that here in this meeting?
well, I think, no. I think we're taking steps to like address the particular actions in August, but I think we're talking about a more general kind of like,
Yeah.
there's already the the town already has a meeting decorum policy. And I think since it's already written and already adopted, having the Board of Health just saying, the Board of Health acknowledges that the meeting decorum policy exists, and we will follow that, you know, we'll have that as the decorum policy for the Board of Health as well, kind of formally, kind of lays it out there and says, hey, this is how you have to behave. And it enables, I think, other members of the board to say, if a situation arises where somebody's being not appropriate, and it doesn't have to be a member of the board, it could be a member of the public, to say,
Yeah, that would be taken care of immediately.
no, and I understand,
That's my point.
but you if you were not on the board and somebody is on the board who is less might be less confrontational, they could say, sorry, man, we
Saying
had a
I'm
meeting.
confrontational?
I know that's shocking. I know it's, but
That's funny.
someone could say, for instance,
Yeah.
we've adopted a meeting decorum policy and you're in violation of it. If you continue, I'm going to call the cops and ask you
All
to
right,
leave.
well, I can tell you as chair right now, I will not adopt that until I get to read that and see what it says.
Okay. That's, you're the chair.
Yep.
But that's the request, is to
Yes.
formally adopt a meeting decorum policy in order for all boards, commissions,
Yes.
and committees. We've talked about the, number one, the use of Zoom in meetings. We've talked about the holding the meetings at times the public can attend, and I think we've addressed that. We talked about posting room changes timely. I think we've addressed that.
Yeah.
I think the use of Zoom meetings, again, you obviously, the two of you, I think would need to,
Are on opposite ends of the world right now.
you know, are not in the same room on that, but I do think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense, and I think, you know, as we, there's going to be
Are we getting,
a TV on the wall here with an owl in this room.
oh, okay, so
So
then
then
it
you have
won't be a
Zoom.
problem.
In this room as well.
Yeah, so it won't be a problem in time. A
and then-
TV, what do we need a TV for?
So that you can see the people, if I call in on Zoom, you'll see my face on the TV.
Oh, I got you.
And you won't, so the laptop wouldn't be here, you would just see, and there'd be a laptop running it, but you'd see a big TV on the
Oh,
wall
that's
with
what
somebody's
those guys
face.
would do.
Yeah, and they run the Zooms.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And Hartley comes in and runs all the boards and commissions Zooms.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Generally
Yeah.
speaking, so.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, but like I said, for now, this is our meeting room and it will continue to be our meeting room until the upgrades are made and then we'll be fine.
Maybe we'll just store a bunch of telephones in here. No,
That's fine.
You were gonna be
I
here.
can
I know.
You
promise you.
guys said you
I
couldn't.
can promise you
You're gonna
this does
stay
tip over.
here.
Okay,
So with respect to a response, we're gonna put in the four things that we talked about. We're gonna put in the adjournment thing that we talked about.
yeah,
This is, the number 4 here, the request for a formal apology. And I'll be a little blunt here. The Board of Health owes them an apology.
and I agree, but I think that should be done by Jim Leclerc.
And what if he doesn't? Because so here's the thing I'm saying is I think Jim owes a personal apology, and I don't think it's ever going to happen. I'll be blunt. But I think the board.
The only apology this board will make is the fact that we had open meeting law violations and we're working to improve them. The attack was personal, it wasn't board related. I don't feel the board did anything other than what it was supposed to do.
Well, the problem is.
Personal
If I-
attack, go ahead, Gavin. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say that I believe that we do owe the two of them an apology, and I believe we owe the town of Townsend an apology, and this is my reasoning for that. The politics in town have been done in a certain way for a long time, and Jim carried on that poor tradition. And that's not representative of how you and I conduct business and how we want the two represent the board. And I think we need to make sure we draw a clear line in the sand on what's appropriate and inappropriate conduct. As board members, we're officially in that seat. And it is our responsibility to make sure the public understands what kind of politics we present, and that comes in the form of an apology. Now, we don't have to apologize personally to them too for what Jim attacked them on, but as board members, we need to make it clear that we don't condone that behavior, that if we would have known about it, we would not have let him conduct himself that way, and we wouldn't have allowed a board meeting at all to go on if we knew we weren't going to be able to control that type of behavior. And the regular people in town that are looking to the future for changes, we have to apologize. Otherwise, we're just falling in line with the way politics in the past have been in town. We need to make a clear line in the sand on what we represent, and that it's not the way Jim acted.
Okay, do you want to repeat that so our clerk of the day, which would be our town administrator, can write that down? I like what you said.
We do have the camera here.
Well, the camera is there, so can we count that as our public apology, what Gavin just said?
No, I'm writing a public apology.
Oh, okay, all right,
So I think if the board votes to have Gavin write that public apology
Yeah.
and give it to the administrator to put on Board of Health stationery, and then we just post it on the website.
okay, good, that good. All right, Gavin, you're in charge of that. I'll make a motion that Gavin writes the apology for the Board of Health at this time.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, there you go.
So the response is due for the earliest one of these on the 1st.
Yep, so you're taking care of that.
So
You're
I'm gonna
writing
put together
Yeah.
just a very, a
Yeah.
written response. We'll talk about putting it on Board of Health stationery,
Yeah,
and it will say the things that we've talked about today.
okay,
So if the board, I would appreciate a vote of the board to authorize me to put in writing what we've agreed on today and put it on Board of Health stationery and send it out to both respondents.
okay, I'll make a motion to have the town administrator do a draft of the response for the open meeting law violation.
Gavin, did you catch that?
Sorry, I was on mute. I second that.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, there you have it.
Okay. And that's gives us only 2 days.
Yeah,
Gavin, that's gonna be due on Friday, so I'll talk to you maybe tomorrow sometime? Or you can just send it over as soon as you can?
Yep, I'll have it by the beginning of the day Thursday. I'll have it by lunch on Thursday.
Lunch Thursday, okay.
Probably in the morning on Thursday.
And that's the 31st, so that's,
Yeah,
we have to, right?
okay. Are you gonna be in on Friday? I'll be a little late, but you know that already.
wow, is that like Memorial, what is it?
Labor Day
Labor Day weekend, I know, time flies when you're having fun.
Wow, summer went by so fast.
Okay.
Now, do you have anything to add, Chaz?
No, I just wanted to, I'm very happy that we have reached this decision to be
Yeah.
able to get this done, but as your liaison, feel free, I've talked to Carla about
Yeah.
it, you call on me for any help that you guys need for anything going forward.
Okay,
I personally couldn't make the 9 o'clock meetings, only because I have a daytime job, but if you guys are moving to nights like you talked about in the last meeting.
yeah,
We've never done 9 o'clock, that was purely just for a summer schedule.
Yeah.
Because of children in school.
Yeah, no, I understand that, I'm just saying that's why
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do the 9 o'clock.
yeah.
But going forward, keep me in the loop, and if you need anything from me, I'll definitely help you out.
Greatly appreciated.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, are we all set with that?
I believe we are.
Okay, thank you guys, I appreciate all your help. Let's see, we'll move to work session.
We don't have anything really, it's
Well,
just future agenda
Just
items.
future agenda items, we could do that. executive session with Shaw's in November. That should be fun. Tobacco regulations, late September, early October, we're still waiting.
No, I talked to Joan last week, she's just about ready.
Almost,
So
good.
she said early September, and I said I wasn't sure even what our
Yeah.
schedule was gonna be, so.
Yep. And our next meeting is on the 6th at 7 PM.
Correct.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Hang on just a second. What day is the next meeting?
The 6th at 7 PM.
Okay.
You kind of agreed to that.
I was there.
What's that?
I said you kind of agreed to that.
Yeah, I did, and I was not expecting to be on the Board of Health anymore, and we'll still have some conversation about that.
Yeah. Well, because I love you so much, I will be resigned from the Board of Health at the end of this meeting.
Say that again?
I said, at the end of this meeting, I will be resigned from the Board of Health.
In all seriousness?
Yes, I made a promise in the executive session, and I'm sticking to it.
And I didn't want to talk about it not in person, but I was not of the position that I was going to have the assumption that I was calling a bluff, or that I was bluffing either, because that's I truly feel that I'm not going to be able to represent this board with Jim on the board.
No.
And I think it's better off with Rick and Carla and Eric managing the duties of the Board of Health for the next couple of election cycles.
Election cycles. You're talking years.
Well,
Until
until
the election's
Well,
up.
I need to know what the
Jim's
process
in for
is
3 more
for
years.
dissolving the board. And,
So,
how it works.
Gavin, I can give you a very quick synopsis of what would happen if you both resigned, or if one of you resigned.
Yeah.
The board would have 30 days to notify the Board of Health of a vacancy. Then there would have to be a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health to appoint someone to fill that vacancy. So in the case of multiple vacancies, I would talk to Adam about it, but we'd still have to have, I believe, a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the remaining member of the Board of Health to appoint someone. It would be my majority vote
Yeah.
to appoint someone to the Board of.
Well, it'd actually be their vote, not ours. We can only recommend.
Yeah.
They appoint.
Well, no, for purposes of elected board, it's a joint vote of both boards
Yeah.
to appoint someone if there's a vacancy during a term. And so in all likelihood, that Carla would send something up to the Board of Selectmen saying we have had a resignation. The board we'd then schedule a joint meeting to appoint a person to the board that would serve out the remaining term of the person who resigned.
Which for me would be until April.
I think it's the remaining term of a person who resigned,
Yes,
or until
yes.
the next election. I would have to read that.
Till the next election, which I'm up for at this election anyway.
In
So.
24.
Yeah, April 24. Because you guys are on staggered.
Yeah,
terms
we're staggered
every year.
Yeah.
I think I'm next, Chris, actually.
No, I am. You just got elected not too long ago, right? Last year.
No, I wasn't last year.
Jim was last
Jim
year,
was
I
last
thought
year.
you were the year
Jim
before.
Jim was 23. I think you were 22. Because I think when
Was I
I
20?
don't know.
Yeah, I thought you were 22, because I can remember, I couldn't pull papers because I had trouble with my mother, so I had to do stickers.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get this right. So if Chris and I hypothetically resign, Jim would remain on the board and he would have a vote on who the next replacement would be to fill out the remainder of our 2 terms.
Well, so the only thing that becomes tricky that I have to talk to town council about is he can't convene a meeting of the Board of Health because he doesn't have a quorum.
That's correct.
So since he can't
Right.
convene a meeting, I don't know if he could convene a meeting to vote with the Board of Selectmen on it. It may just be the Board of Selectmen. I honestly don't know.
Unless we've been doing that wrong for years on other boards I've been on, one representative would go and recommend someone, and the board would just vote on
Well,
it.
those are for appointed boards. It's different.
No, I was on planning board.
Yeah.
You didn't have to have a quorum. We just sent one guy would go and say to
Yeah.
the selectmen, we want to try this, and they'd go, okay, that's what you want, whatever.
You guys are doing it wrong.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen.
No, we've done it a few times in the last year, so
I agree. If we're doing it wrong, we were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But that's how it was.
We've done it a few times in the last year, and you have to actually convene a joint board meeting.
How are you going to join a board with one member?
And so, since he can't have a quorum, that's the question. I have to ask town council what that would mean for purposes of appointing someone to a board, an elected board that doesn't have a quorum.
Yeah.
And it may just mean that he can't call a meeting, and only the Board of Selectmen will be voting on it.
Yeah.
But whatever Adam says is what we
Yeah.
do.
And just for the record, I won't be doing any capital planning anymore either. I'm officially out. Just letting you know.
Have nothing to do with that.
I know.
So, what, is there a possibility that the select board could not come to an agreement on who would fill the open seats? Therefore, the procedures and processes of the Board of Health would be carried out by Neshoba, Carla as the administrator, and you, Eric?
I mean, I suppose it's theoretically possible that the Board of Selectmen couldn't get a majority to vote for any particular person to be on the board. That's not, I mean, I suppose it's possible. Even in the interim, in between a time when the Board of Health could no longer convene and the time when there was a theoretical Board of Selectmen meeting joint with the Board of Health to appoint someone, if the Board of Health couldn't act, we'd basically like function with Rick continuing to do what he does, and then
How would that work with where we have to sign all the permits and everything?
yeah, so I don't think statutorily you technically do. When I worked in Lowell, the Board of Health didn't sign any of our permits.
Yeah.
My staff did all the work was at staff level.
I don't know what our charter says about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the charter gets into that level of depth for what the Board of Health's, I would have to look at the statute and see, it's not, we'd obviously have to continue the work of the town while the Board of Health was not able to do things, and that may mean that some things, we say, there's a meeting in late September where we're gonna try to appoint someone and then they'll have a quorum, so we're just gonna kick these stuff off till late September, tough luck. There may be some things that are more emergencies that we're gonna have to, have Rick handle because it's an emergency and then we can't.
What about our invoices?
My biggest concern, and Carla will take care of all that stuff as far as administrator goes, and you'd be crazy not to have her because she does such a great job. I mean, she runs the recycle center all by herself.
Well, there's
There's
no issue with Carla. Carla's still a town employee.
Yeah.
The existence or non-existence of the Board of Health would not impact Carla's
Yeah, okay.
duties in
Wanna
the
make
town
sure
at all.
she's okay.
At all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus,
No.
we can lock her doors.
Yeah.
I do
We can
have a
lock 'em in
question
there.
though.
We'll just go
What
find
is the
the person with
probability
the master
that
key.
Veronica and Cindy are gonna get on this board? Because I see that as a possibility and we already know that there's a hostile environment between Jim and them. And I feel like it's against myself too. Is the Board of Selectmen gonna support something like that?
Well, hypothetically, I can't speak for the board, but I would honestly say that all factors would be taken into consideration on any vote that we would make.
I would hopefully think that would not be a good idea.
And there-
Only for the reason that in the past, you, yourself, and Veronica were trying to do away with trash pickup, and that is not a good idea with a trash contract that's gonna have to be negotiated. I don't think that would be a good idea for the town. Because remember, I will do an underwriter and get that $700,000 back to the people, if you ever decide that is not going to happen. Because the town did vote $700,000.
400,000.
Seven. I've seen the two things. in the
Unless
two
there was a
different
separate one that I'm not aware of, I only saw the 400,000.
There were two of them. Total of 700,000.
So at the end of the day, for purposes of appointing, there would have to be a posting with, that there's vacancies on the Board of Health.
Yeah.
People would have to submit volunteer response forms, and then the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Board of Health, if it was only one person and there was a quorum, would have to vet them and make a determination as to whether anybody who's qualified. You know, the Board of Health, I think, is an important board. You need to have qualified people. It can't just be anyone. Just like it can't be anyone on the planning board or just anyone on the zoning board. I mean, that you have to have people who are qualified.
Elected boards are just elected. Doesn't mean you're qualified.
Well, you should be. I mean, I think elected officials ought to be qualified too.
You
But
haven't
that's a
been
whole
in this
other-
town very long. It's hard enough to get someone to do anything.
So I understand what you're saying, but the process that's what the process would be. You know, we get notice that there's an opening on a board. We post it as required. It gets posted on the website, and
I understand
God,
that, but
there's
there's
gum under this
clear
table.
conflict
Gross.
of personalities here.
yeah.
There's clear, so
I mean,
I just don't understand how it could even happen. I mean, where Gavin's talking about going forward and being transparent, that would be, to me, just a horrible decision to throw those people together.
Certainly would be it certainly would be right for further conflict. But I have 0 votes on who gets on the Board of Health, you know.
it would be a horrible conflict.
Yeah.
Be a horrible conflict. You think they'd be yelling at each other all the time. And elected officials, because of our charter, can't be removed. So that would be horrible for the Board of Health if that happens.
As I say, I'm just telling you what the process is. I can't tell you who the people.
Yeah.
There's 9,500 people in town, and I don't know who would apply. I don't know, given the circumstances on the August 9th, whether anyone would apply to be a member. And if no one applies to be a member, then the board, that Gavin is what would tie the hands. Would be if no one says they want to be on the board.
Right.
Then that would be the most likely outcome.
That is what I would think the most likely outcome would be.
You know, me too. I think that the answer would be, if the person who's remaining on the board is the person is Jim, who did behave the way he behaved on August 9th, I can't imagine a person saying they wanted to sign up to be on that board. And so I think it's most likely that we get nobody if we're
I
left.
think you're getting that exactly because the two other board members, well, at least I am.
are fed up enough to quit.
Yes.
And you guys already wanted to be on the board.
Yeah.
Other people out there who,
I enjoyed being chair and I thought I was pretty good at it. But I just thought I'd
Only a
step down and I
chair.
guess I made a terrible mistake.
Well, I'm of the opinion too that in the future, I'm not against getting back onto the board. I'm just not going to do it. I'm of the opinion the best case scenario for this is to remove Jim from all of these situations. And if that means that I need to step down and Chris needs to step down, then that's what we're going to do, and that's why we're going to do it, because it's the best thing for the town with the least amount of confrontation. What I don't want to have happen is make that worse for anybody else, specifically Carla, who's stuck in the middle of this whole thing with everything to lose, unlike Jim, myself, Chris, and the two plaintiffs from the night, right? Like, nobody has as much to lose as Carla does in this whole situation.
well,
So I don't want to make things worse by stepping down and then creating a bigger problem that affects people's life in real time.
right. And I just want to be really clear from my perspective. From my perspective, Carla's doing an excellent job, and I don't have any issues with Carla's work ethic or the work that she's done. And the whatever happens to the Board of Health, in my opinion, doesn't have any impact on Carla's remaining as the Board of Health administrator. And
Sure, but we already have people walking in her office giving her a hard time, and it's not so much the goings on of the Board of Health, it's all of the other intangibles that have more of an impact on someone like her who's in that position as an administrator than they would impact somebody like me or Chris or Jim or whoever else.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about her job. I'm talking about mental health, stress, and the brunt of the fallout of what's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way to get on the other side of this is to have the person who caused the issue not be a part of the board anymore. But none of us can affect that. He made the decision to not do that, and there's nothing that the Board of Selectmen can do about him being elected member of the Board of Health. There's none of the other members of the board can do that they haven't already done, which is to remove him as chair and basically take away the power to run meetings and do that and to censure him. Those are the things that the Board of Health can do. So I hear what everybody's saying, and I want to be kind of as sensitive to Carla's position of this as I possibly can. I think from I don't know whether you guys resigning is going to make that easier or harder to do from an administrator position. Because I don't know what Jim's going to do as a result of you guys resigning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
If anybody could predict what he's going to do, let me know. But I don't know what he's going to do. Whether he's going to decide that he's going to pack up his ball and go home, or whether he's going to decide now that he's the only Board of Health member, he's going to camp out in town hall. Like I have no clue.
Right.
If you guys stay on the board, he would be the clerk, and you guys would run the meeting. Chris would run the meeting, and that I could predict kind of what that would end up with, because that board with you as the chair has run in the past, and then we probably could run the way it ran when you were the chair before. But that doesn't remove the person who's the problem from the board.
No.
Right.
No. Sorry.
And it doesn't represent us in the light that we would like to be represented as well. And which is, back to why I feel firmly about an apology, because I want to make it clear where I stand. I mean, I'd like to live in this town until I'm an old ripe man as well, and be able to walk around town and smile and shake people's hands.
That is fun.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, can we get a motion to close at 5:30?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting at 5:30.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So closed.
Okay,
All right.
thanks guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Gavin.